This episode, we are talking about one specific television series. A series in a dark dystopian future where our hero is continually tortured by his captors week after week, driving him to the point of insanity. Every episode is done in the name of science. It takes place in the not-so-distant future. Next Sunday, A.D. There was this guy named Joel, not too different from you or me. That's right, we're doing Mystery Science Theater 3000 on this episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 That's for the show. Yay.
What?
Hello and welcome to the Satellite of Lunch. I'm Insane Mike, and this is episode 316, and we will be talking about Mystery Science Theater 3000, or to the scholars out there, MST3K.
Man, I thought this was going to be serious the way you started this episode.
It is serious.
Oh.
I take this topic very
You do.
seriously. I'll introduce my crazy bots here in a minute, but first, if this is your first time listening to Attack of the Killer Podcast and you want to know what this show is all about, well, listen for yourself and figure it out. It's not that hard. Now, if you like the show, and you should really donate to our Patreon. And when you donate, you become part of the Killer Podcast family that we call the Attackers. Now, as an attacker, you can get all kinds of amazing perks and extra content. Everything from bonus episodes to YouTube shows to membership card, sticker, and certificate. And you could even get your own Attack of the Killer Podcast t-shirt if you want. You can pick a movie for our Patreon Picks episodes, to even get things like shout-outs on the show, like these amazing people right here.
Timothy Leonard, Roman Doppelfeld, Larry Watanabe, Brett J. Royer, Seth Key, Jessica Irish, Chris Cook, Brian Godsell, Stephen Sitter, Brandy Moore, Andrew Mahler, Rod Hutchinson, Carmen DeHague, Abraham Ariano, Andrew Bentler, Casey Kelderman, Tony Miller, Mike Clayton, Rose Teleshoma, Abe Kirshner, Lisa Cavalier, Holly Berg, Bill Fisher, Emily Randolph, and Greg Dedrick.
You too can be part of the IT crowd, part of the elite, more exclusive than the Illuminati. And how do you do that? By going to jointheattackers.com. Pick the tier that best suits you to get all the content you want. Again, that site is jointheattackers.com. Become an attacker today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Robot Roll Call. This robot went on a crime spree. He got caught when his battery ran out. However, the cops decided not to charge him. Brian.
I'm different.
What do they call the female transformer? Transistors. Jason.
Oh, my. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Happy that you're here.
And we have a very special guest for this episode. No, it's not Torgo, the pizza delivery guy. Matt Foy.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys.
It's great having you back.
Oh, yeah.
It's been way too long.
It has.
I can't even remember what was.
He wasn't a doctor the last time he was here. That's
Holy
something.
moly.
Nice.
Yes, I was.
Were you?
I've been a doctor since 2013.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I guess it has been that long then.
Dr. Matt Foy.
I should have said that.
Hey, buddy. What have you been up to?
Oh, not a whole lot. I've been radically downsizing my life. So instead of getting more cool stuff, I'm getting rid of all the cool stuff.
Oh, what do you got?
So all the movies are gone. I'm selling my record collection. The house is no longer a big house.
Yes.
So
I like it.
it's, transitioning to things like, downloading instead of just purchasing the record or the DVD. It's very strange.
Yeah, you having any remorse or withdrawals or anything?
No, the money's been good. So every time I
guess
ship a
that.
box, it's like, yeah, the house is much closer to being paid off now, so I'll take it.
But at the same time, you're like, what do I do with all this money now?
Yeah. I'm tech savvy enough that I can, rip the records and rip the DVDs, so I still have the music or the movie, but
Yeah.
yep, there's just a lot more space that no longer exists.
Nice. Well, congratulations. I will never be able to pull that.
Yeah, and Tad's on assignment today, so he's not with us. But we got Matt.
That's right. Now, people ask us all the time, with watching movies for the show, preparing our notes, recording the show, what do we do in our free time? We watch movies. Here's Jason with what we watched.
All right, let's find out what crazy ass shit Brian's been watching.
Let's see. I cracked into the Vinegar Syndrome Homegrown Horrors and watched a little regional slasher flick called Haunted Ween. That was a lot of fun. About a slasher going around a haunted house on Halloween. So, very clever title. Yeah. Let's see here. What else? Lifeline, another Vinegar Syndrome title, and Hong Kong flick this time. It's sort of like the Hong Kong version of Backdraft. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's about firefighters, and the story and the characters. There's a good bit of drama. It was actually fun to follow along with that. The little different, more slice of life stuff than the crazy shit I usually watch. But either it's the most cleverly edited movie ever made, or some of the most horrifically dangerous stunts ever put on film, because there's a whole lot of people getting enveloped by fire
Oh, my.
in that movie. And you know how they do things in Hong Kong. They don't fuck around. They don't have OSHA. Those stunts are the real deal, Caught up with the last Hammer Frankenstein movie that I had yet to watch, Frankenstein Created Woman. That was fantastic. I mean, of course, it's a Hammer Frankenstein movie with Peter Cushing. You can't go wrong with those. And then I watched probably the bleakest, most malignantly mean-spirited black comedy I have ever seen, The Coffee Table. I've seen it a lot. Like, it's kind of been going around, people talking about this movie, so I thought I should check this out, because that sounds like it's up my alley, and boy, is it ever, and then some. So the best review of it that I read was, if you're having a really good day and you want that to stop, you should sit down and watch The Coffee Table.
That's how you do it.
It makes you want to claw your flesh off.
Oh, my. That sounds like a challenge.
It's fantastic. I loved it.
Awesome.
Very cool, very cool. Well, let's see what crazy shit Matt's been watching.
Well, not so crazy. I've actually been working on a comedy-related project, so I've been watching a lot of comedies specifically to try to find out kind of what is comedy, not necessarily just like what is funny, but what is comedy. So I've been watching satires like The Producers, Dark Star, but for movies that your audience would be interested in. When I was with Brian a couple weeks ago, I finally got to see Las Vegas Serial Killer by Ray Dennis Steckler. I'm a big Steckler fan.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and we finished off the night with Umberto Lenzi's Nightmare City, aka City of the Walking Dead, one of my favorite silly zombie movies. And last night I broke out the Psychotronic Man, because whenever I get nostalgic for Chicago, that movie is so Chicago, it makes me feel like I'm right there.
Nice. Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, thinking of which, when you were over, we also watched Ice Kong, which
Yes, we
was
did.
hilariously bad. So it's an American movie, but it's never been released over here. It was only ever, I can't remember if it was Japanese or South Korean DVD of it. And a buddy of mine sent me a rip of that DVD, and it's like just, talk about a movie that Taylor made for our topic tonight. It's just perfect mockery cheese.
I take it.
I remember.
So I'm assuming it's a King Kong movie in the snow.
Yeah. It's have you seen Yeti, Giant of the 21st Century?
Yes, I love that movie.
It's kind of like that, but made for $5.
Oh my, awesome.
Wow.
I remember the perspective on the monster changing radically from scene to scene. Sometimes it's King Kong size, sometimes it's just like a large ape.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jason, there you go, like G1 Transformers.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Anything else, Matt? Those are the main ones.
Nope, I think that's mostly it. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a quick run of TV series here. I'm going to sit down and watch The Prisoner here after we're done. I've been meaning to watch that again for a long time.
Cool. What's the end goal of the comedy study? Papers and things?
Yeah, I'm doing a big, I don't want to say it's a cancel culture project. It's more kind of the reaction, the backlash, the industry that came out of complaining about cancel culture. And one of the main defenses is, oh, it was just a joke. We can't take a joke anymore. Comedians aren't allowed to push boundaries anymore. So I was interested, well, when are we pushing boundaries and when are we just saying horrible shit and then saying it's a joke? So I've been trying to figure that out a little bit, thinking about analyzing it not from whether it's funny or not, because that's purely subjective, but more about, is it comedy in the historical theatrical sense, like a comedy play versus a tragedy.
Awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. All right, Insane Mike, what crazy shit have you been
I'm going to start with the thing I liked the least. I watched that new documentary that Andrew McCarthy, not Kevin McCarthy, oh my God. Andrew McCarthy made about the Brat Pack. It's on Hulu. It's called Brats. And yeah.
because it's not good or because it's hard to...
No,
'cause
it's
poorly
not
made?
good. It's not good. It's a little bit too, I'm Andrew McCarthy, look at me, feel bad for me because being called part of the Brat Pack ruined my career and life. Yeah. You're already...
Well, thanks for saving me some time because I was actually looking forward to watching that.
Yeah. And first of all, they barely even get like a tenth of the Brat Pack interviewed. I mean, they get some significant ones. You get they interview like Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Leah Thompson, but no Judd Nelson, no Molly Ringwald. They don't even acknowledge Anthony Michael Hall being a part of it. His name's never mentioned once.
Kind of a big part.
You would think. So yeah, was pretty disappointed because first of all, it's like super. Those interviews are super choppy, and it's Andrew McCarthy sitting down and chatting with his old buddies they haven't seen in 30 years and talking about how this term Brat Pack affected them, whether it was positive or negative, and also, there was a lot of the interviews that just felt like spinning wheels, And probably the best part of it was Emilio, because Emilio and his thoughts on it, because Emilio was on the ground floor of it all. It was all that all started with, what was it, Time Magazine interview with Emilio where the phrase was coined. So yeah, it was, and it's a lot of him driving in the car to go talk to his next celebrity friend, or him walking through the streets of New York, contemplating what this has done to his career.
Being remembered forever has ruined my life.
Being such a serious actor, stage actor and everything, and getting lumped in with this horrible phrase title, being called part of the Brat Pack, and I'm sorry, the guy from the Weekend at Bernie's movies isn't taken seriously as an actor because of being part of the Brat Pack. But anyway, wasn't a fan. Next thing I watched a Trauma release from '86 called Blood Hook. Have we all seen Blood Hook?
I think so.
Oh yeah,
That's the Jim Allen movie, isn't it?
What's that?
Yeah.
That's the Jim Allen movie, isn't it?
Yep, that's the main reason I watched it, because I wanted to tie it into the show. Because Jim Mallon directed it, and for those who don't know, he was a producer, writer, director, and even the voice of Gypsy for MST3K from like '88 to '99, and he even directed the Mystery Science Theater 3000 theatrical movie. So, then for those who haven't seen it, during a local fishing contest, people are being dragged into the lake by a giant fish hook. That about sums it up. And yeah, I think maybe I was going in with a different expectation. I just feel like they kind of should have leaned into their silly premise a little bit more. think, and it's like 2 hours long. It's like, this is kind of boring. But also of note, Kevin Murphy, voice of Tom Servo, from 88 to 99, was the key grip on the film. So some Mystery Science Theater pedigree there for you. The last one I'm going to talk about, because I'm hoping I can relay my thoughts properly. But I feel like I have quite a bit to say about it. But I watched The Marvels. Jason.
Good.
Now, as a fan of the MCU, the movie's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's cool seeing those characters and seeing them side by side. Since like a couple of them are kind of more from shows, and then Captain Marvel being from the movies, what have you. Great exploration of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in space kind of stuff outside of the Guardians. So it was fun, but I think I realize now people's issues with the quote unquote Marvel fatigue. Because I feel like if you are a pretty big fan of these films and you do see everything, the movie's great. But if you kind of more of like average moviegoer, casual, hey, I want to go see the new, big blockbuster, Marvel movie without a ton of context, and that's kind of where it falls apart. Because one thing for me, 27 minutes into the film, like it all starts off with these three super heroines, and every time they use their powers, they swap places. So like Captain Marvel's in space fighting the Kree. Miss Marvel is in her home in New Jersey with her family, and when Captain Marvel uses her powers, she switches places with Miss Marvel. Now Miss Marvel's in space fighting the Kree and doesn't know what's going on. Well, Carol Danvers is in the middle of the living room where Miss Marvel's family is, and Monica Rambeau is also getting swapped around too, and it's just them every time they use their powers, and they don't realize exactly why this is happening yet. So every time they use their powers, they swap positions, 3 different places, and just constantly fighting like Kree and other villains and whatnot. And that lasts for like 27 minutes. I just feel like, could we have not scaled that back a bit and maybe added a little bit more, like a little bit more like story or character development, or there's a lot of great things going on with these 3 characters that are related and some unrelated to each other, and each have different feelings towards one another, and I felt like that could have been explored a lot more. You got like Miss Marvel, who's like this fanboy for Captain Marvel, but Captain Marvel is a flawed character that we learned throughout the film, and Monica Rambeau is distant because she has history with Captain Marvel, and I feel like they could have done more with that. Like can we get a little bit more story and structure in here, and not just be jumping from action scene to action scene. And from somebody from the outside, there's just moments from this movie that would be completely lost or come off as like pointless moments. There's the scene where they save the scrolls, and now they got to figure out where we're going to do with these scrolls. And Captain Marvel's like, well, I know who to call. And then here comes the Rainbow Bridge to Asgard, and Valkyrie's there and just takes the scrolls back to Asgard with them. And I just felt like if some casual moviegoer who probably hasn't seen a lot of this is going to not know what that scene was about, who that person is, and it would just kind of come off as like a little fluff scene. Where somebody who's seen all the stuff, it's like, oh, that's awesome, there's Valkyrie. So I mean that's just it for me. I just feel like maybe that might explain the whole fatigue thing. Maybe if that makes sense. Does it make sense to you, Jason? No.
That Skrull thing, that feels like they could have like said some stuff about taking in refugees too, instead of just like conveniently poofing them away.
Yeah. I feel like too, Miss Marvel. There was some missed opportunity with the character of Miss Marvel, who has no connection to any of this stuff. She's, a teenage girl, just in her own little world in the streets of Jersey, saving her community. Street level hero, now whisked into this like big epic galactic thing. She could have been a great character to be the eyes for the audience. She just kind of feels like she goes along with things a little too conveniently, where it would have been great if she was questioning things more, and not necessarily exposition dumps or anything, but I just feel like things could have been easier to follow if Miss Marvel was treated as like the wide-eyed, what's this here, what's this do, what's that kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
I don't know what to say. I have seen all the things beforehand, so
yeah,
I wasn't, and I just let the movie give me what it had, and not worry about what could have been better or what could have been different, or I don't know.
No, I agree with you. Like I said, I really liked it, but I think I just can understand where other people are coming from, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, they dug their own hole on that one, I guess. If you create a universe so big, which is what everyone wanted, but then when everyone couldn't keep up, then you're going to lose some. So that's Marvel's. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Jason, what did you watch?
Well, I watched some crazy ass shit, guys. Let me pull it up here. I got the fam together and we went and saw If. I know, crazy invisible people, imaginary friends. It had Ryan Reynolds in it, so I'm all in. And John Krasinski, the director's in it, and he's funny, and it's great and funny. Awesome kids movie. And while we're at that movie, trailer for Inside Out 2 is on, and so the kids are like, I want to see that. And I'm like, I haven't seen the first one. They're like, what? And the next day we go home and they make me watch Inside Out, the first one, which I hadn't seen. Pixar movie. It was super awesome. There's like a different kind of comedian cast in that one. Like, it's not the same old comedian cast. Amy Poehler's your lead. Bill Hader, Lewis Black, Mindy Kaling.
Yeah, can you just would you ever imagine being in a world where Lewis Black is doing a voice in a...
But like Paula Poundstone, Bobby Moynihan, Kyle MacLachlan. Anyway, just different. But so that was neat. And so I think this weekend we're going to go see Inside Out 2.
Nice.
And then the other weird, awesome, it's pretty good. I liked it. Boy Kills World. It has Bill Skarsgård as the main dude, Jessica Roth, who I love, from Happy Death Days. It was action-packed amazingness action movie, which, I don't know that I care too much about action movies, but it was just freaking fun and cool. And let me kind of find it again. He can't talk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the person speaking for him through the movie is hilarious.
Yep. Bob's Burger guy.
Yeah. Yep.
I can never remember his name, but I've loved him since home movies on Adult Swim.
Same. So it was weird hearing him be like super angry guy while still being really cheeky and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
But like there's moments where he tries to be serious and it's like, but it's you. I don't know. And so, but then you see this super buff version, which isn't him, You know, it's like these things just don't line up. This is weird. This makes me feel funny. But I liked it. It was really good and fun. And that's what I watched.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome, Mike.
Filled some big shoes there for filling in for Tad on what we watched.
He'll try to give me the segment now just to get out of it.
But we should probably get into our topic, which is Mystery Science Theater 3000. Man, I love this show. I've always loved the show, and I love everything that is spun out of it, like Cinema Titanic, riff tracks.
Everything.
I even have the DVDs of the film crew that I didn't even know existed until I saw them on the shelf at like half-price books. But MST3K, where should we start, Jason?
Oh yeah, and I wish like heck Tad was here because I was saving it from last time to talk about it this time about getting to see them live. Tad and I went to see them live a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
it was so good.
What was that show?
It was Joel, and it was, gosh dang it, what movie was it? My memory sucks. Okay. Anyway, and then another question. So the trailer audios we're going to hear are just the movies, regular trailers.
Yeah.
So do you want an MST3K intro, or do you want to just talk about the movie afterwards? I don't know what you want.
It's tough. I'm nervous about this episode because I'm not really sure. I'm personally
weird.
Not sure how to talk about these episodes, but I had faith that we would figure it out.
Okay, let's figure it out. So up first, what we're going to be talking about today is where'd it go? It's from season 5, episode 6, from Mystery Science Theater 3000 in 1993. This came out. We're talking about Eegah.
From ancient Genesis to the modern screen is the name written in blood. Eegah!
If I could just call you on the phone. The code of the ghost at the sign of the toad. Nobody lives on the Brownsville Road.
Thrill to the newest recording star, Archibald Jr.
Oh, they're screaming this way.
See ravishing Marilyn Manning in a thrilling, chilling story. The last of the prehistoric giants sees his first girl. Noah. Curious newsmen search deep in giant country for the last of the ancient cavemen. See a tough giant tamed by the soft hands of his captive woman. See him sacrifice his ageless beard for her love. They lose her to a boy in a dune buggy, escaping a burning desert. Eegah's primitive passion was love or kill. Hear Eegah talk, the ancient language of love, used at the beginning of time. See Eegah.
I love it. Here, Eegah use the ancient language of love.
I just love how I've never in my life heard a trailer highlight shaving as a reason to see the movie.
I'm sorry, Tiff, but I'm never going to sacrifice my beard for love. Oh my gosh. A teenage girl, her dorky boyfriend, and her scientist father discover a caveman in the desert in Eegah from 1962. Joel and the bots discuss 60s sitcoms and the subtler forms of hell. This is directed by Jim Mallon, we spoke of earlier. I just got to get it out of the way. My favorite line from all three of these movies tonight, which I can't believe any of these were ever made. How did these get made? You just heard. Anyway, maybe my favorite line from all three films is when they call the lead of this movie Cabbage Patch Elvis. That's one of my favorite. Oh, Tiffany and I laughed for an hour on that one. Oh my gosh. This movie's crazy. These guys are funny. The things I kind of like. The score is okay. I enjoy the surfy beachness of it. You know,
The surf music.
They try to combine it.
How about those scenes though, where it just sounds like one guy in a room tuning his guitar?
I know. I was
That
trying
was
to find
probably
something.
actually Arch, because he can play.
He really is a thing.
Like, I have one of his albums.
Whoa.
No way! Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it has a lot of audio clips from Eegah on it.
And we got a baby-faced Richard Keel, and that's
Once the beard is off.
the giant man himself.
Yeah, I was shocked to learn, preparing for this episode, that I was like, this has got to be Richard Keel's first thing he ever did. No, he'd been working quite a bit up until this point.
Wow.
Like, oh, Richard, what are you thinking?
So you guys like this one?
Well, I always, if I hold this one up as the ideal gateway episode, because it was my ideal gateway episode. So yeah, so back in a little, if I could tell a little story here. So back in high school, Brian and our other good friend Bob were talking about this show that I had never heard before, because growing up we didn't get the Comedy Channel, we didn't get Sci-Fi, so they just were saying, "Watch out for snakes," for no apparent reason, and I was trying to figure out why. And then they said, it's from this show, and you come over and watch it. And you know, when somebody builds something up, it can't possibly be that funny. And then it was, and I fell out of the chair laughing so hard, because for those who haven't seen the movie, just an off-camera voice without a character says, "Watch out for snakes," as they go into the desert to find Eegah. And and Servo just seizes on it, and it became a catchphrase for the show.
For the entire run of the episode,
yeah. But it's more beyond that. It's got a wonderful invention exchange, just a fun movie to mock, and probably a half dozen riffs that would recur throughout the series. So it's really, really perfect for anybody who hasn't seen the show and wants to get started.
In fact, when we our senior, it would have been our senior prom, we double dated that night and took our dates to a pretty nice supper club in a little town near where we lived. And as we were leaving after our meal, our dates were behind us, so we got to the door first and turned around and yelled, "Watch out for snakes," into the restaurant, and then bolted out the door, so they were stuck there being stared at by all these disgruntled old people.
I worked at a Dairy Queen in high school, and we put "Watch out for snakes" up on the marquee and just left it there for a day.
That's awesome.
Oh, this show has been part of our lives for quite a while, and a pretty big part too.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite episodes of the show. It's totally why I put it on here. Some of my favorite stuff, though, maybe especially from the Joel era, is not so much the jokes, but when they do sound effects. And when the helicopter's coming in and they're waving and they're doing noises, it puts me on the floor every time. Or when the helicopter's coming over the horizon and they start humming the MASH theme song. So good. So good. This Eegah itself is directed by Arch Hall Jr.'s dad, Arch Hall Sr., and
who did that lovely voiceover in the trailer.
Yeah. And I don't know, do any of you guys feel like Joel and the Bots were a little too harsh on Arch Hall's appearance?
No, he deserved it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
What's wrong with his face?
Yeah. How about that skit where they smash Joel's face to turn him into Arch Hall Jr.? But I will say, in Arch Hall Jr.'s his credit, I thought he was quite good in The Sadist. If anyone had a chance to see
Hell
that,
yeah.
that's
Oh
good
yeah, I
stuff.
love that movie.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of a weird off performance, but it works in that. I really like it.
Yeah. So in my mind, for this, I think it's less that they're making fun of Arch Hall Jr. as much as the movie's supposition that he is a teen idol. Like if he was just a background character, he probably doesn't warrant a mention. But because the movie is so insistent that this guy's the next Elvis, you have to respond to that. You can't just take that from a movie uncritically.
Well, and I feel like they also got it that I don't know. This is obviously was a vanity project. Like most of Arch Hall Jr.'s films were like vanity projects for him, and like all being pushed by his father. It just I don't know. It just always felt like Arch Hall Sr.'s like, my son is super talented. Look.
Yeah, so I think that's why he is such a target for ridicule. I think that you pick up on that definitely watching the movie. Even back when they were writing it, they didn't have the full history online like we do now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you guys. Like, just give it to Arch Hall Jr. the whole time. It's funny, and he's goofy looking in it. And you mentioned Ray Dennis Steckler earlier. He has an appearance in the movie as Mr. Fisherman, and his girlfriend, future wife, Carolyn Brandt, is also in it in that same scene. And Ray worked with the Halls quite a bit. He directed Wild Guitar that same year in 1962. So get some Ray Dennis Steckler in there. Yeah.
So the the Mystery Science Theater cast and writers speculated over the years that there had to be some kind of a weird relationship between Arch Hall Sr. and Marilyn Manning, who plays Roxy, because of their dynamic in the cave, including the famous shaving scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the things the show often did, was kind of insert or suppose more sinister elements to things that were supposed to be romantic or fun or whatever, and then they'd often go the other way and impose silliness on scenes that were supposed to be taken seriously.
So, Jason, I'm probably going to ask you for each one of these, the movie on its own. Would you ever watch it?
Oh, will be mine. I'll cut and copy paste that.
Yep.
Coward.
No.
I know you have seen a lot of these really bad movies, but only with the bots.
It's the only way to digest them for me. I'm sorry. It's just the taste. It's my stomach. I can't handle it.
Oh, I can even agree with you on some stuff. Say, like the infamous...
You would watch
Manos...
Eegah by itself?
I have watched Eegah by itself.
Before
Oh, yeah.
MST3K?
Multiple
I don't know
times.
about before. I can't remember, but maybe on its own. At some point I have, though.
Fucking crazy.
But there's some movies, say like, the infamous Manos Hands of Fate.
Get out of
I don't
here.
think I could ever watch that on its own without the
I'll
bots.
go to bat for that one.
Really?
Oh.
It's just
Manos-
so boring.
It's you have to be in the right mindset for it. I'll give you that.
Near
Like
death.
if you're just but if you're people like us who already are used to weird movies, right? So we understand that there are levels of quality beyond just like the whatever shit is on the marquee at the movie theater. But so man, they make that joke about every frame of the movie looks like somebody's last known photograph. and if you put that in your head when you're watching it, the badness actually makes it creepy instead of boring. For like, I remember, so Matt and I roomed together for a year at college too, and I remember staying up late one night talking about Manos, not the MST episode, but the movie itself, and like genuinely creeping each other out about it. Because if you sit down and watch that movie in the right mindset, it is such. It feels like you're watching a transmission from another dimension.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And Eegah doesn't hit that because it's Eegah's, I would say, worse than Manos, maybe in some ways at least. It's maybe a little bit more of a quote unquote real movie, which is works kind of to its detriment, and it's also very silly and lighthearted. Manos is trying very hard the whole time to be an atmospheric, creepy, if not outright scary horror movie.
Yeah.
And sometimes it achieves that, always purely by accident, of course, but it does happen.
Well, I think I could see what you're saying to a point, because there's a lot of like super low budget, no budget films that I can find really creepy due to its lack of talent or resources. And I'm speaking in particular of when it's nighttime shots, especially outside nighttime shots, and the foreground is overblown with lighting, which just creates utter darkness and blackness behind them. And just, it's always the unknown, right? So just scenes like that I can find really creepy when there's just emptiness behind these characters. And I know Manos definitely has a lot of that, of overly lit foregrounds and no definition to the backgrounds.
Yeah, and I know, I remember when we watched it back in the days, I think it would have been, the uncut version would have just been out on like Alpha Video, I think at that time. That's probably the cut we watched. And there's a scene that's cut out of the Mystery Science Theater where the master basically slaps the one insubordinate wife to death while she's tied up.
Oh.
And it's, and compared to what we've all seen in the annals of horror, it's not all that extreme, but there was just something about it for me, like just paintbrushes her until she's dead. I remember finding it really off-putting.
Okay. So, but back with Eegah, no scenes in particular that are really creepy.
Nope.
I mean, anytime Arch's leering face is...
Those extreme close-up shots where he's staring right into the camera. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or if you find the whole daughter shaving her father somewhat, not totally sensually, but just enough that it's a little bit off, I guess that takes us into a weird area.
It's definitely disturbing, that's for sure.
And the implication that he's urging Roxy to give herself to Eegah so he doesn't kill them both.
Yeah.
What?
Just sell off your daughter. Yeah.
Even if he isn't going to watch, he's still going to have to sit there and listen to it.
Yeah.
So this was the first MST I ever saw was the movie. That was another friend of ours from grade school introduced me to that one. I also didn't have cable or satellite growing up, so I didn't get to see any of this stuff until I think I was maybe 13 or 14 when we got satellite, and it was right around the era it was starting up on Sci-Fi. I remember watching they did, before the show launched on Sci-Fi Channel, they did Roger Corman's Day the World Ended, but it was like an audience participation thing, so they had people in a chat forum like typing jokes in, and they would show up on the screen as the movie was going along. But Eegah was definitely the first Joel episode I ever saw. Probably the first one I ever owned, because I bought a lot of the Rhino VHS back in the day. But this is easily my favorite episode of the show, and the one I have watched the most times. And like, I could just about recite the entire joke script at this point by memory. Awesome. And it's one that really goes to show how rewatchable these episodes are, especially the really great ones, because you'll pick up things that, you can't remember every joke the first time, obviously. Yeah. But there are little things like, I don't know how many times I watched this movie before. And I think it might even been Matt that pointed it out to me that I noticed it for the first time. At the party scene at the end, when Roxy's standing out on the veranda at night, and a moth flies into her head, and I think it's Crow just goes bonk. And like, it's really quiet, and it just goes by, like, if you blink, you'll miss it. But I probably watched this fucking episode a dozen times before I ever picked up on that one joke.
Oh man, yeah, good old Eegah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would say this one really captures. It's really special between the movie too. Like I said, it's got the Pork Arena is a fantastic invention exchange.
Oh,
And again, for like, if you don't know, because when I watched it the first time, I didn't know what an invention exchange was. I didn't know who the characters were or why they were doing what they did. But yeah, it's funny, and it ties into something you recognize culturally, which is the Beverly Hillbillies sound effects. And Joel, they have two skits where Joel really plays that father role, where he like helps the bots understand kind of what it is to be human, or how the world worked before them. And that's something that a lot of folks really thought was missing from the later years, the Mike years. He didn't have that same relationship with them. And then that scientist, where they're going to turn him into Archall Jr. It just hits. It's just 10 out of 10. All the skits work.
yeah.
There's a great show podcast called "It's Just a Show" that each episode just is like a deep dive into an episode of MST, and something they talk about a lot is the difference again between the Joel and Mike era, and especially between the Sci-Fi Channel Mike era, where the skits, like all the characters are very antagonistic toward each other by that point. Like there's a lot of like the humor is very much cutting each other down, whereas in the Joel era, you get this sense in the skits of them just hanging out, like it's just some buddies talking about silly stuff. Well, they're talking about the hell boiling up to take over the earth, while Joel is sewing something and he's using Servo's head as a pincushion, and it's just these kind of cozy little moments that it's really something special.
Well, as the show and the theme song shows us that Joe created the robots for companions while on the Satellite of Love, so of course he's going to be kind of like a father figure, or pal around with them. But one of the things I liked about Mike in the earlier episodes of Mike, when he took over for Joel, is how Joel just kind of went along with the punches when it came to the Mads, but Mike just seemed like a lot more defiant against the Mads, and that's one of the things I really
that will come up later. In fact,
yeah, should save that. My first experience with MST3K is I was visiting a friend while he was at college, and in their dorms they did have Comedy Central, and he had it on when we showed up, and I'm like, "What is this?" And he explained it to me, and I'm just captivated. I can't even remember what the movie was, but they were doing a marathon at the time too. So all my friends were like, "Yeah, let's go do this. Let's go to this party. Let's go to this." I'm like, "All right, I'm fine. I'll keep an eye on the dorm room for you guys. I'm good. I'm just gonna sit here and watch this."
I definitely don't remember my first time, but what I do know is that Pluto is amazing, and there's an MST3K channel and a Riff Tracks channel, and they're right next to each other. And when I need just some background stuff, it's one of those two always.
It's the amazing thing about, it's one of the positive things about this world of streaming and whatnot is back when I couldn't get enough of the show, it was so hard to find. Yeah. Like, especially like shortly after the Comedy Central years. And I don't know if you guys ever knew this, but they syndicated MST3K for a while. I remember it aired after Saturday Night Live on NBC on Saturday night. So, starting at like midnight or whatever, and I would stay up and record them. Anytime I could try to soak up any MST3K. And now you can find it all over so many different platforms. Pluto TV with its channel. There's a ton of episodes on Pluto or on Tubi, Shout Factory. And then you got Netflix, who created new seasons.
Yeah, you spoiled little shits. You don't know how lucky you are. That's what Mike was trying to say.
That's right.
I remember down DVDs from tape traders and then making them from other people. And I think Brian did at one point. You don't still have those season 1 DVDs, do you? In those white cases?
Indeed, I do.
Hell,
Of course, he hoard those.
Season 1.
I still
as in
have most of those bootleg VHS tapes.
yeah.
Are you talking the cable access years?
No, probably season
no.
1, the first.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the first
Boots.
Comedy Central season.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next episode we're going to talk about. Matt, what is that one?
All right, our next episode is The Black Scorpion.
Most terrifying news of all. At nightfall, monstrous animals crawl out of crater of volcano. Great herds of cattle stampede before this living inferno. Vast area devastated by appalling new horror. A creature named the Black Scorpion by panic-stricken people of San Lorenzo. Entire population prays for deliverance.
For miles around, cowboys came upon one dead steer after another. One of them had heard the tale of the demon bull of the Maricopa. Having lost family or friends to something absolutely unknown, he could be in another world.
Nation's leaders confer as news received of possible threat to capital.
This is a city of 4 million people. If word of these leaks out, the panic of the population could be worse than the scorpions.
The Black Scorpion destroys communications. Hundreds annihilated. Produced on a scale never achieved before by any science fiction picture. Thousands in the cast.
All right, so The Black Scorpion is a 1957 Mexican-American creature feature, most famous for having stop-motion special effects by the great Willis O'Brien, who is one of the godfathers of that art. It's Mystery Science Theater episode 113. It aired on the Comedy Channel, which would later become Comedy Central, on February 2nd, 1990. Canonically, it is the last episode of the first season. Not the cable access the first year. It was a professional production. Though Women of the Prehistoric Planet aired 1 week afterwards due to a rights snafu. In the Mystery Science Theater lore, it's probably best known for being Josh Weinstein's last episode as the voice of Tom Servo and as second banana Dr. Earhart until returning as the latter in the Netflix era. And in season 1, we are still very much in the era of the show where the quality of the movie is the primary driver rather than kind of the comedy performed, which is still somewhat primitive. And as thus, this would probably be considered a highlight by many of season 1 because it's a pretty darn good movie. So what did you all think of The Black Scorpion?
My favorite of the three, probably
Of the movies.
The movies themselves. If there was one that I could watch, it's probably this one. Just the stop motion stuff was great, and then just the completely not matching giant face of the scorpion every time it come towards the camera. I loved it. I just loved it. Yeah, this was a good one.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this is, it's definitely it's a fun movie, and it's again it's in many ways it's probably about as fun watching it as the Mystery Science Theater episode, because they're still kind of in the just making a quick comment about kind of what they're seeing on screen and then moving on era. They would get much better at it as they went on, and this is right about the time they'd start really developing their craft.
I didn't realize this was the final episode for Dr. Earhart, but I wanted to get an episode that had him in it because Probably not a lot of people are familiar with him before TV's Frank came in. Jason, was this the first time you ever seen him?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah.
That I really really watched.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and he was cool. I mean, I've always been a TV's Frank person myself, but I think the contrast between him and Forrester worked so well. But Dr. Earhart was good too, and the movie itself, yeah, it's probably one of the better quality films.
Yeah.
From MST3K. Just the stop motion alone.
Which means nothing.
So much
but that
fun.
means, yeah, I'm just kidding.
That's a great 50s creature
just
feature.
kidding.
Far and away the best movie of the night.
Sure.
Well, that's not a high bar either.
No.
Well. But, I mean, even if it were a high bar, Black Scorpion would put up a good fight, because it's a blast, and the stop motion is awesome.
Great stop motion.
I would like to help in dispelling a rumor, speaking of the stop motion. There's a lot of... you'll see when this movie gets brought up, they used either footage from the legendary King Kong spider pit sequence, or they reused armatures that were made for that. And neither of those things are true. All of the weird creatures you see when they go underground were made for this movie.
Nice.
There is little to no evidence that the spider pit sequence was ever actually filmed. There are a couple of those still photographs you can see floating around, so there was probably some sort of pre-production work done on it, maybe some proof of concept models or something. But the spider pit sequence doesn't exist, and none of the creatures in this movie have anything to do with it.
One of the things I always loved about MST3K that really captured my attention right out of the gate, especially the Joel era, is just the deep pop culture reference, the deep cuts, like in pop culture, like the stuff that would make Dennis Miller's head spin. It would, so deep, and it, like, hear them reference. For me, it was like hear them reference, and I'm not talking about this episode in particular, just in general, but hearing them like make reference to like an Alan Sherman song or a Tom Lehrer song, or something that I thought I was the only person that knew about, and I get this obscure reference right out of the gate. Just really spoke to me a lot, which I'm assuming for a lot of fans of Mystery Science Theater. And I always felt like they did their research pretty well, but I mistakenly didn't take notes when I watched this one, so I don't remember. But I think they screwed up. Didn't they reference that this was a Ray Harryhausen film at the beginning?
But Joel corrects him later on.
Oh, okay. I must have either missed or forgot that part. Okay.
Yeah, they do the whole third skit is where he just sits down and explains to the bots who that is, because they build their own little satellite love model. So he comes in to do a little mini lecture. Yeah, and that was kind of especially in season 1. That was really the dynamic Joel was trying to teach the bots how to, like I said, how to be human, or kind of what the world, how things work. And then they would return to that for the rest of Joel's time there, but usually it devolved into farce, or it was sabotaged by the bots or something, kind of to show the contrast. Joel tries to do something similar in season 3's The Unearthly, which stars John Carradine and Tor Johnson. And he's trying to educate the it's probably the 4th or 5th one I ever saw, because that was one of the ones that was on VHS. Nice. And so he's trying to teach them about how, John Carradine was really a great accomplished actor, and the bots immediately take over and start talking about how Tor Johnson is the real good actor, and they make up that he's in a bunch of movies that he's not in and things like that. So
okay.
So from season 2 onward, they would still do those kind of things, but it always was a joke more than kind of it felt more earnest, educational in season 1.
Okay. Cool. I'm totally spaced that skit where he explains it.
Yeah, because it's been a long time. When Matt asked me earlier about if I still had those season 1 DVDs. That was the first time I saw this, and I remember really liking this episode, and it's probably more remembering just how much I like the movie, because the jokes are a little clunky, and there's some better stuff even in season 1. Mad Monster springs to mind. That's one of the more solid season 1 episodes. But yeah, when they first did that Harryhausen thing, it's like, oh no, are they really getting it wrong that quick? Come on.
Yeah.
But then, so when that skit came on later, it's like, okay, good. They did that joke on purpose to make a point so they could tell people about Willis O'Brien, because at the time, now he's much more appreciated, I think, but early 90s, late 80s, obviously people knew King Kong, probably a little bit of The Lost World, but Harryhausen's always kind of overshadowed his mentor. And, O'Brien just got the short end of the stick every step of the way in his career, the poor guy.
Yeah, it's too bad, because, the stop motion in this is great.
Yeah, he was a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
But it's just like, King Kong, Lost World was, that really kind of propped him up. King Kong made him a star. He kind of got shit on when they did Son of Kong. They, slashed the budget, cut the amount of time he had by 3/4, and kept pushing to do more and more stuff. And it eventually got to the point where he got so fed up with it, he just kind of turned everything over to his assistants on Son of Kong. And so, like, you guys deal with it. And then during the making of that movie, his estranged wife killed both his sons.
Oh my gosh.
And then tried to kill herself. But in fact, by shooting herself, she turned the gun not on her head, but on her chest. And in fact, wound up the gunshot, because she had pneumonia, drained her lung and prolonged her life. Yeah, it's really... And then, of course, the rights to King Kong got snaked away from him by this sleazy asshole who made a deal with Toho, and that's how the Toho King Kong movies got made. And O'Brien's life is just a fucking misery dirge. It's really depressing.
Leave it to Brian on a lighthearted MST3K episode to give us some super dark history lesson.
Well, here's something a little more fun then. So this movie stars Richard Denning and Mara Corday, who Richard Denning is like the second best Richard in 50s monster movies. I'm a Richard Carlson guy all the way, but if I can't have him, and that's why Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of the reasons that's so great, you get both of them. But anyway, so Richard Denning's the star of this. His co-stars Mara Corday, who's maybe the most gorgeous 50s sci-fi monster movie actress of all of them. And I was reading just a few months ago one of Tom Weaver's collections of interviews with all the various 50s and 40s monster movie stars he talked to over the years. And one of the conversations was with Richard Denning, and he had just gotten married shortly before this movie was made. So he went down to Mexico and starts, hanging out with the cast and crew, and they start filming, and he wires home to his wife, "You better come down here." And she's like, "What? Why? Aren't you just making a movie? Like, you'll be back soon." He's like, "Yeah, but there's this girl on the movie, and she's kind of putting the moves on me, and I'm afraid something's going to happen, so you better come down and keep an eye on things." Apparently Mara Corday really had it for Richard Denning and was out to get him in bed. So there's that.
Oh wow!
They had good chemistry as a romantic lead there. One of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, she was trying to get in his pants in real life, so of course they did.
Yeah, there was a scene where they were at dinner, like having a romantic dinner, and Joel and the bot are, I guess, rhetorically turning it into an IHOP because they start going on about, "I need another short stack over here, and these waffles are amazing," like short-circuiting the romance between them. And then later on they share a shot where they're looking longingly into each other's eyes, and there's a fountain in the background, and I think it was Sorbo's like, "Hey, there's water shooting out of his neck," just because of the way the scene is shot. So that's something they're always doing, like whenever there was actual good stuff going on, you gotta poke holes in it and draw the audience's attention away to get them laughing again.
All right, so Black Scorpion. What is our next episode, Brian?
Next episode is Season 9, Episode 7, Hobgoblins.
For 30 years, a sinister secret lay hidden behind these walls. I don't want to have to remind you a second time. Just stay clear of this area.
But there is something mysterious about this place that draws him closer to the truth.
I'm going down that hallway. I'm going in for a closer look.
Stop whatever you're doing! Don't go near the vault!
And tonight, that secret is going to come out. The Hobgoblins are back.
We're too late!
And they're looking to party.
Cardboard! I recognize it anywhere! Stop breathing all over me! She must be happy to see him.
No one is safe from these cagey critters.
These creatures have a power. They can tap into your brain and sense the things that you really want to do.
What's wrong with that?
They also try to kill you.
But first, they will grant your heart's desire.
Do you kiss on the first date?
I go all the way on the first date.
My kind of woman.
Then they will uncover your most secret fantasies.
Amy would never come to a place like this.
Lapscom is proud to present Miss Amy Sims.
Oh my God.
And when your wildest dream is about to come true,
Get off the stage!
these gruesome gremlins turn it into a nightmare.
What's going on here? Just a problem involving some small predators, sir. We need to stage a diversion. And I have just what you need.
Because getting everything you want can be hazardous to your health.
War isn't pretty.
Hobgoblins, they'll make you party.
In a rowdy crowd tonight.
Till you drop dead.
So, Castle Forrester, Pearl's having some remodeling done, but the furniture gets delivered too early before the remodeling work is finished, so she has Brain Guy send it up to the Satellite of Love for some temporary storage, leading Mike and the bots to decide to jump on it and have a juice box squeezing fight. Pearl, upset with the stains on her new upholstery, sends them Hobgoblins, a movie that she has apparently been holding back for just such a punishment. The movie involves some little critters who are who crash landed on Earth in their UFO and were taken prisoner in a movie studio by the security guard, I guess. And he takes on a new apprentice security guard, accidentally releasing the Hobgoblins, and they run around causing people to envision their deepest desires, which leads to them dying, I guess. You know, I was excited when this one got put on the list. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and this is one I remember loving because, of course, aside from Eegah and a few other, you know, buying some of the Rhino VHS tapes, the sci-fi era was what I was like. That was my main introduction to it because I watched all these as they aired, but having missed all the Comedy Central stuff. So and as a high schooler, of course, like this, the more mean-spirited humor just really clicks. I always used to think Mike was the better of the two hosts, and my views on that have changed as I've gotten older. And there are still some great standout moments. I do get a kick out of the whole, like, they ruin Pearl's furniture, so she makes them watch this as a punishment. And it starts strong. The bits when they're trying to mock the names in the credits and they all just give up on life, and Servo and Crow keep running off in opposite directions trying to escape the theater, and Mike has to go drag them back. That's good. But man, this one bogs down hard in the middle. And when we're first introduced to all our main characters too, the opening bit in the film studio is really funny. The introduction to the main characters at their house when the army guy and his girlfriend are fucking in the van, and then they have the like fake fight with the rakes.
Yep.
But like once the Hobgoblins get out into the world at large and they wind up in this biker club, it really devolves into a lot of the worst tendencies of the sci-fi era. A lot of homophobic jokes, a lot of transphobic jokes, just a lot of kind of ickiness. And then by the time it's over, it's just, you almost feel like, and to a certain extent this was true because of that they're just kind of over it and they don't want to be doing this anymore because the Sci-Fi Channel imposed a lot of strictures on them that they didn't have before, where they wanted these seasonal story arcs and the skits and this, that, and the other thing. Like around, I feel it was probably around the time the movie came out was the first inklings of the powers that be kind of horning in on their creative control, because a lot of people's gripe about the show is, oh, they make fun of things that are too good. Like, why are they making fun of this island Earth? Well, they didn't want to either. Fucking Universal made them do that. They would have picked something else if it was their druthers. And so, you know, at best, MST was a great way to just another way to interact with the material. It's a dialogue. It's not, and this is something that Dr. Foy should be talking about because this is his area of expertise. But the attitude that kind of surrounds this movie and a lot of the movies in the sci-fi era, I think, is probably where people get that sense of tension from, because they were kind of burning out at this point, and the meanness of the humor, the punching down. Because they were always at their best punching up. That was the whole point. Yeah. And when they start punching down, like in this episode, that's where they kind of start losing me and presumably a lot of people.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I know the sci-fi era wasn't, is definitely not the best representation of the show. Even, and that Sci-Fi Channel was way too involved with the direction of the show, even down to the way they shot the show. Like, they were trying to do like far more creative camera angles and stuff, and no, you just need that static camera pointing right at them, like it's some local TV horror host show, and not, you know, crazy cinematic, you know, point of view from the air shooting down kind of camera angles and stuff like that. But regardless, though, I still love this episode, and it's probably the one I watched the most, because this is the episode I first introduced Mystery Science Theater 3000 to my son. And he was young enough to still where, like, the idea of watching anything that could be remotely scary was like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's too scary. So I showed him this one. I don't even know how I got him to sit down to watch this one, but he did, and he was also still at that age where kids watch things over and over and over again, and we spent weeks watching this thing every freaking day, and I couldn't get him to watch any other episode.
I was going to say, there's like hundreds of other episodes you could have watched.
And it was always Hobgoblins, but now he's at the age where for Thanksgiving we just hung out and watched the MST3K marathon all day, so he's gotten past just watching Hobgoblins, thank God.
You know, the trailer made it sound like an actual movie while we were playing that. I'm impressed. So to touch on some of the things that y'all have talked about. So the thing that stands out for me in not just the Mike years, but probably especially this episode, is really their contempt for the movie. Like, you never got that in the Joel era, where they were just furious that they were going to have to watch something. And really, I think that's, so in the whole Joel versus Mike thing, I probably come down, I wouldn't pick one or the other, but I'm probably more of a Mike booster than a lot of folks are, because I think the Mike episodes are generally funnier. Like, I will laugh more times per minute in a Mike episode than a Joel episode, but they do lack that kind of wholesome quality. And we're like Joel's clearly like not, he's happy to be there. Whereas Mike, from the very first episode, he's there, wants the hell off that thing and wants nothing to do with it. And I think that says something to the audience. I think, like, you know, Joel or Mike are your conduit to the show. And if one of them says, like, you know, hey, welcome on, and the other one's like, I don't want to be here, then I think that says something to the audience. Like, do you want to be here? Do you want to watch these kind of movies? So I think that's where some of the I'm psychoanalyzing here, but I think that's where some of the anti-Mike backlash probably came from. Like I said, this particular episode is not necessarily one of my favorites from the era, but I get what they were going for, because I think the movie, this is one of the movies that they did. There are very few that were self-consciously bad. Like it was crap and it knew it.
Yeah.
And I think in order to be, to push back on that, they when the movie goes low, they go lower. Like when the movie goes low, when the movie goes low, they stomp on its throat, and that was very different from the Joel years. But the Joel years never had something quite this self-consciously terrible. Like, look at me, I'm making a piece of crap.
That's a good point. And this movie, I will champion most of the movies they did on the show as something I would gladly watch on its own. And indeed, most of the movies they've done on this show I own unriffed and have watched multiple times. You could not pay me enough to sit through Hobgoblins without MST3K. This movie is fucking atrocious. It might be, I'd have to look at a full list because I just, pulling off the top of my head, I'm probably missing something. But if this isn't the worst movie they ever did, it's goddamn close. I fucking loathe this type of movie, which is also
Rick
why
Sloan fan?
I would rather grind my nuts off on a belt sander than watch Slimeball or Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bowler-M again, because they're the same fucking movie to me.
First of all, that's not a Rick Sloan movie. That's David Duchovny.
But it's the same type of movie. But Hobgoblins is probably the worst because at least Slimeball has Linnea Quigley and a couple other little moments of charm. But yeah,
I will say I like one thing about Hobgoblins, and it's got an early performance from Dwayne Whitaker in it, who plays Road Rash.
Yeah.
So of course he's folks who know like Leatherface, Chainsaw Massacre 3, and of course the bad guy from Pulp Fiction. He's in Tales from the Hood, and he's in Devil's Rejects. I'm a Dwayne Whitaker fan.
Yep, we had him at Halloween-a-Palooza the other day.
I don't know. I think it's hilarious that that of all the movies, this is the one that broke the bots, and they just lean into that through the whole thing. I think it cracks me up every time when they're just like crying at the screen.
Yeah. One of my favorite skits though is the where their cardboard cutouts and their mouths are moving, and it goes a little too long, and it's creepy as fuck, kind of too. And then eventually they're sneaking off behind there. I love that skit.
Yeah.
And I'll say for the record that Mike's definitely my favorite host of the show, not just you. It's all Mike's. Make me like. But I don't know. I've always been a Mike guy, and Joel maybe cemented it to me watching these again. The first episode is like he said happy to be there. That's because he's stoned off his ass.
See, that was what I was going to say.
I just don't relate to. I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Joel versus Mike. Because Joel has one tone.
Yeah.
Now he does that tone really well,
yeah, sure.
and his jokes. He's got the timing for his jokes that land really well. But, at least with Mike, things get mixed up a bit, whether he's doing a goofy impression or, some silly voice or really omits emotion in some of his jokes. So that's why I've always liked Mike. Now, I've gotten to the point now where I just jump back and forth, so I can't even, I don't even want to say if I have a favorite host. They all have their amazing qualities, in my opinion. There's not been a bad host yet, so.
And Mike's got some bangers too, like when they did Beast of Yucca Flats. Yes. And was that his first season, Matt?
No, that was season 6. But they mentioned Beast of Yucca Flats in his first episode, which is the brain that wouldn't die when they're running through a gamut of bad movies to get ready.
Yeah, it means something that if Brian's calling Hobgoblins one of the worst movies, the show that celebrates the worst movies.
Well, it's like I was saying, they confronting a movie that's bad on purpose. If you set out to make a movie and it just happens that you don't have enough money or you don't have enough talent or whatever, and it turns out bad, I can still find something to enjoy in that because it's sincere. But Hobgoblins, it's just so callous because, like Matt was saying, it knows it's shit, and it's not even trying to be something interesting. It's just you can't manufacture a cult movie. And what's worse is between MST and Vinegar Syndrome putting this pile of steaming garbage out on Blu-ray, it garnered enough quote unquote cult popularity. They made a fucking another one a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Which
You seen that?
Fuck no.
Riff Tracks did it, and it's like, I don't know if I can go that low. I don't know. Yeah. There's something definitely about like a bad movie on purpose, which really interests me because, like Brian earlier, you mentioned, like, there's some low blows here in this movie. They do some anti-trans stuff. They do some anti-gay stuff, but also the movies kind of teeing those up. Like the MC of the club. Is very like he's coded as you're supposed to laugh at him because he's effeminate and therefore probably gay.
Right.
So it's like when you're riffing on that, and again, I don't know if this is the kind of thing I really love to do is just sit down and analyze this stuff. Like, are they, who's the jerk here for making that joke? Is it calling out the movie's jerkishness or is it yourself? And I've actually wrote a little bit about that because there are definitely some moments in the show where you can watch the characters say some really cruel, mean stuff, but it's clear they're riffing on the movie. Like they're highlighting what the movie's doing and drawing it out. But then sometimes they themselves are just saying stuff that they probably shouldn't. And I could go back to the Black Scorpion. That first skit, that's a little racist. The whole where they, dress, it's just mocking the fact, not callously, but probably, at least in today's world, somewhat problematic, that they're dressed up in sombreros and making jokes about Mexican food and stuff just because the movie takes place in Mexico. But also later on they do similar things, but it's clear they're making fun of the movie. Like are you all familiar with like the Mexican Santa Claus movie?
Oh yeah. I love that film.
Yeah, there's the scene at the beginning where Santa's sitting watching all of the racial stereotype kids, like African kids with like nose rings and stuff, and Crow's going off and saying bigoted stuff, but it's clear he's amplifying what the movie is doing, so nobody would reasonably watch that and go, oh, this show is racist. No, it's commenting that the movie is racist. So little stuff like that, I just love getting in that language, and this is a movie that allows that kind of analysis, even if it's not necessarily like maybe their highlight. In fact, I would say season 9 is definitely a highlight, and this one kind of gets to be the most memorable one. But they did such better. They did Puma Man, they did Werewolf, they did The Touch of Satan, Screaming Skull, Devilfish. Season 9 was awesome.
Yeah. And you're right about like especially the stuff in the Santa Claus movie. That is very clear that they are taking the movie to task for already having been racist. I think in Black Scorpion and in this, I feel like it's coming more from just that type of comedy was more acceptable at the time. It was expected, or if not expected, at least like. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The host in Club Scum is definitely queer coded, and they're picking up on that and playing with it. But I feel it comes off in this one like they're just feeling like, oh well, the movie's giving us license, so we can make this joke too. Whereas in Santa Claus, it's a little more thoughtful and high-minded.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And I with the anti-trans stuff, I didn't like that. Like the one, I think her name is Daphne, I think, Kelly Palmer's character. Yeah, they're very clearly trying to masculinize her in a way that's meant to discredit or dislike that character.
Well, and when the Hobgoblins are making the nerdy guy think he's on a date with that prostitute, and there's a lot of like, oh, that's David Lee Roth. Or, whoa, dude looks like a lady. It's like, oh, come on, guys. You can do better than that.
Yeah. So stuff like that, like this is why I love studying the show, because it, there's no, it's every person's interpretation. Yeah. Some people probably just think, oh, the character's wearing shiny gold pants, so therefore it's, it's David Lee Roth or someone from that era because, that's the way they used to dress in hair metal 80s, or is it specifically related to gender? We get to play those language games, and it can be really, really interesting to see how people interpret those scenes. I love the way the show draws those things out and makes them really clear, and you get to engage with them as an audience member.
Here.
So I wanted to also ask you guys, since we're on this episode, your thoughts on Pearl replacing Dr. Forrester. No opinions?
I love Pearl.
Okay. Yeah, I do too.
I think she's a lot of fun. Forrester and Frank are always going to be like the best mad scientist, but Pearl
Bobo
and
Brain
I know a lot of people hate Bobo. I think he's funny.
I love Bobo, yeah.
Who hates Bobo?
Like,
I love Bobo.
Get out of here if you hate Bobo.
The dynamic of Pearl and Bobo and Brain Guy, and actually that's one of my favorite things in this episode, and in a lot of episodes, but because the riffs in the movie didn't hold up for me as well in this one, I think it brought out the skits a little more for me. So Pearl's interaction with Bobo and Brain Guy in this one, like they bring the couch back down and then they're fucking around on it. She's like, "Who wants candy?" And they both come up and grab those bombs from her and run off stage. And then there's the explosion. She gets hit with the debris and just goes, "I don't mean to yell." Like she's just so, but it's like, it's very underplayed. Like she's just tired. Like she really doesn't want to be mean to them, but they're just so dumb that it makes her that way.
I just want people to stay off the couch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big Pearl fan, and I'm a big Mary Jo fan.
Yes.
It took a little while for the character to get there, especially, because Pearl is the de facto second banana in season 7.
Yep.
And people, season 7 unfortunately just isn't remembered all that fondly, I think just because it was the death of the show. But once she found that character kind of partway through season 8 and then for the rest of the sci-fi era, I think she's great.
Yeah, I agree with that, because there's definitely I felt like an elevation in her character between those two seasons, to the point where when I saw her in the sci-fi era, I wasn't even sure if it was supposed to be the same character. You know what I mean? It came off as almost like a different character the way she did it between the seasons.
Played so differently.
Yeah, but it was a good evolution to that, I think.
Yeah, she had her moments in season 7 as well. I'm a huge fan of the Incredible Melting Man episode.
Oh, me too.
I love the movie, period. I would say, I personally think it's the funniest episode they ever did. Just an absolute laugh right from the beginning. But that's the one that's the one where the writers exercise their frustrations with making the movie. So she and Forrester are the clueless movie executives who have just utter contempt for what the show is doing, because Crow sells his Earth versus Soup screenplay, but then Pearl and Forrester are constantly meddling with it, and you can tell they're exercising their demons from dealing with Gramercy with their movie. But yeah, great episode. It's not streaming. That's one of the ones they can't do, but it's out there, and it's absolutely the funniest thing they ever did, in my opinion.
Oh man, that one's not streaming. I'll have to check my old VHS to see if I have that one. Dang it. Cool. All right. Well, that wraps it up for our discussion on Mystery Science Theater. It's time to close the vault door to the theater because our experiment is come to an end. But don't stop now. There's still more show to come. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to close out the show with our last two fan favorite segments. First, though, you're going to hear a promo for our podcast network called the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. The PFPN is home to so many great shows, such as The Horror Cast, which is a show about a group of friends who review horror cinema, old and new. You can check out The Horror Cast and all the other shows at thepfpn.com. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to the show, and now it's time to hear from you guys, the listeners. Here's Jason with shout-outs.
It's time for
shout-outs! 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 Shout-outs!
All right, we asked, what are your favorite episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000? And right off the bat, Attacker Hot Rod, he says, oh, something Jason might finally like. That's right. This episode was filled with more laughs than the last several years.
It's the only way I can get him to watch some of these crappy movies.
And then up next, this is all in the group edition on Facebook. We have Attacker Lisa. She says, either the I Accuse My Parents or Puma Man episodes. Mm-hmm.
Good choices.
Great choices. All right, and then over on our Facebook page, we got Jacob McLaughlin. He says, Eegah remains my favorite, a perfect episode.
I knew I picked the right movie for this one.
Hey, Jacob.
And then Tim chimes in, watch out for snakes! Jacob says, who said that? Up next, we have Robert Dopp. He says, Time Chasers is the ultimate episode of MST3K. At one point, I could recite nearly every line. It's perfect because the movie is terrible, yet was made so earnestly in the 90s that you can tell the cast and crew probably had genuine fun making it. Movie, I need to see your supervisor, is a quote from them.
That reminds me of when we talked about Hobgoblins earlier, that Time Chasers is such a great contrast to that because both movies were basically given to Best Brains to riff, but Time Chasers didn't get the same venom because it's got heart, it's trying, whereas Hobgoblins got a much more brutal sense and probably deserved it. So the good contrast there to go back to that conversation.
Nice. Up next, we got Attacker Tim Lennerer. Y'all know Tim.
Yes.
Tim says, I'm basic. My absolute favorite is Manos, The Hands of Fate, for having an all-timer, dismal-ass movie and top-tier riffing. Plus, it's a rare, rare day when the Mads individually apologize for sending the movie. Honorable mentions, too. Fire Maidens from Outer Space. Operation 007. Pod People, It Conquered the World. Eegah, Village of the Giants. The Dead Talk Back. He's just naming all the episodes. The Skydivers. Danger, Death Ray, The Mole People, The Puma Man, Hobgoblins, and finally Time Chasers for making me want to buy a Castleton t-shirt and wear it to B-Fest.
I have a Castleton t-shirt.
He says, when I heard the bigger orchestral theme at the end of the Netflix episodes, it brought tears to my eyes. Everything was different and bigger, but still just a show at the same time. And I'm glad that MST3K brought back to Unholy Life multiple times. Got brought back multiple times. Here, Tim.
I was going to say, we should have Tim on instead of me. He's a poet with this stuff.
Isn't he, though? Yeah. Up next, we got Harley Ramsey says, Space Mutiny. I love all the nicknames Mike and the bots give the male lead.
Big McLarge Huge gets the most love, but I've always been a fan of Crud Bone Meal. That's the one that always gets me.
Crud Bone Meal.
I'm a blast hard cheese guy.
He would be, and now that's on tape. Okay, so, and then lastly, we got Calvin Goodlickson says, my favorite is Hercules against the Moon Men. Yeah. We didn't have any over on Twitter or Threads or Instagram, but we do have some voicemails.
Hey, Attacker Brian here, and I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and we stopped to visit the Pope Lick Monster, and he's hypnotized Finney, and I'm running for my life, so I don't give a damn about MST3K 3 whatever, because I'm gonna die here soon. But if I live, I'll call back next week with an answer. Take care. Bye.
Oh, the theatrics, these guys. Well, I hope you live, Godzilla. Up next, we got Hot Rod.
Hey, Attacker Rod here again. Never seen any Mystery Science Theater, so I won't talk about that. But I'm going to talk about something.
I said, why the fuck are you calling that?
I was watching some Father's Day movies, and I let Attacker Brian Godsill know, and so he made a suggestion that I should watch a movie called Father's Day, and so I did. And yeah, it's a movie. Then I hear you guys reviewed it years ago. And so I thought, damn, I need to listen to that episode. And I find out that there was 6 people reviewing that. Only one of you had the common sense to know that it was garbage. That was Jason.
Yay!
So,
of course it was.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
So evidently you guys like movies about guys getting anally raped. Let's see. What else did happen? Oh yeah, his guy got his dick bit off. And then there was a lot of incest. So I'm glad you guys evolved from there. And you're a much better podcast now for it. So, till next time, see ya.
Thanks, Hot Rod.
I guess.
I think. Yeah.
Said with all the contempt of Mike Nelson saying, you guys watch Jodan Baker movies?
Exactly. All right. Well, if you too would also like to leave your voicemail on the show, you can. All you got to do is pick up your phone and call 415-952-6857. That's 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us that voicemail. We'll play it on the show, and that's shout-outs.
Oh, we got Insane's pick sign.
For Insane's Picks, we're going to talk about the 80s film Invitation to Hell. No, not the Wes Craven film from 1984, but the no-budget Michael J. Murphy film from 1982. Now, if you remember from a couple episodes ago, I introduced you guys to Michael J. Murphy with his film Bloodstream, the film he made about a killer movie director who kills a movie producer who ripped him off. Now, that movie was made out of pure frustration for getting cheated out of his own distribution deal, and that distribution deal was involved with Invitation to Hell. Now, Invitation to Hell. Laura invites her college friend Jackie out to her country estate for a costume party. What Jackie does not know is that she is a pawn in a demonic game. She is drugged and taken out to a black magic altar. The next morning, she wakes up at the house with claw scratches on her legs, and she tries to escape, but she is trapped at this location. She is to be used as a sacrifice in a druid ceremony for the spring equinox. The movie is only 44 minutes long, and so it wastes no time. It's like 5 minutes in, and Jackie's already being duped and held captive for the sacrifice. There's some fun gore and effects, like a awesome heart getting ripped out scene where the mute killer screams after his heart has been ripped out. There's a sweet stabbing through the back of the neck. And then my favorite is the awesome-looking hooded demon creature dude at the very end. Now, with its cold, damp countryside farmhouse location and where they never leave the property, and it's extremely no to low budget, it really gives me an Andy Milligan feel vibe, only far more cohesive. I'm going to continue to campaign the films of Michael J. Murphy until we all praise his greatness. So it's on YouTube in its entirety, or you can get that amazing box set that I'm still waiting for somebody to buy for me that I mentioned last time. But I highly recommend checking out. And then this is probably, as far as quality goes, I still haven't seen a ton of his movies. So it, what I've seen so far, it's definitely a higher quality, better production value than some of the others that I've seen. So this one might be a little bit of an easier pill to swallow for some people, but do check it out. Get on YouTube right now and check out Invitation to Hell. And that wraps up the show. Well, almost. I thought of another question I wanted to ask you guys during the shout-outs. Is there a movie... This is probably a dumb question, but is there a movie that you feel like did not deserve the MST3K treatment? I will. Okay, go ahead. I was just going to start us off if anybody was struggling. I can take comedy with a grain of salt, so I'm not insulted that they've done certain movies that I love. But I would say if any movie out of the entire catalog probably didn't deserve it, if I had to pick one, I'm going to say Danger Diabolique.
It's a good choice.
Yeah. You know, Mario Bava, just one of my favorite Bava films, honestly. And, you know, that one I feel like it's kind of hard to make fun of if you are really paying attention to the movie.
I still love that episode, though.
Oh, it's still a great episode, yeah.
I don't think so, because I think you can do this with any movie. In fact, I mean, I wish they would have done more highbrow stuff, obviously, getting the rights of movies. Like, let them take down Lawrence of Arabia. Fuck it, nothing's sacred, right? Because I always get the most excited when they do a movie that I already love. Like, and I think we talked about this a little bit in a bonus episode a while ago, but... that, like, when they'd announce, oh, we're going to do another Ator movie, or, oh, we're going to do Land That Time Forgot. Like, I genuinely love those movies and have watched them many, many times on their own and will watch them many, many times more. So, but then it feels like I always wind up being a little disappointed because it's never quite, like, the episodes are just never quite as funny as I want them to be. And it's like, oh, well, I wish they...
And maybe it's because...
That was a wasted effort. But
the quality of film made it a little harder to write some quality jokes. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I'm with you. I agree. Like, there's nothing sacred.
You got one, Matt?
I'm sure I can think of some, but when I think of this question, I think mostly of riff tracks, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
They've done several movies that I consider. Night of the Living Dead is a holy grail for me. I consider it to be probably the most important horror movie ever made.
Agreed.
And I love it, but I also, but what they did was also really funny, and it really brought to light to me just how once you see a movie riffed, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Because I consider like the ending of Night of the Living Dead is it's a piece of art. It's a work of art. I can't ever imagine laughing at it, but I did, and it's just another way. It's just another way to think about it.
You bringing it to riff tracks. That brings me to a point. I remember when they did the live Mothra thing. That one really gave me pause. 'Cause I'm like, oh, are they going to make fun of the effects? Are they going to tear down? Because I mean, did they look realistic by today's standards? No. But were they made with an extreme amount of love and care by the people who made them? Absolutely, they were. And I mean, obviously, it's no secret how much I love kaiju and tokusatsu stuff. Yeah. So I was a little hesitant, and I still haven't actually seen that one.
Oh.
But I have heard from other people who are every bit as much into that type of stuff as I am, that they were respectful with it, and that was actually really funny. So
okay,
they really have changed my life.
Yeah, the riff tracks guys have a rep. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, they have a reputation for being ruthless and tearing stuff down. I think it's overstated. I think people just they see, oh my God, like how dare you make fun of that? That speaks to I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it kind of speaks to our whole our relationship with criticism, like the how dare you criticize something, how dare you review something I like unless you're going to say I like it. Like there's meaning and understanding and yes, even comedy to be made out of poking into something that is legit good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm with you though, because I forgot there for a second. Like, riff tracks goes all over the spectrum as far as quality of film. And Night of the Living Dead, I'm right there with you. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and it's the live episode is one of my all-time favorite riff tracks. So yeah, the only time I feel like riff tracks commits a crime is when they decide to do colorized versions.
Oh. Yeah, speaking of not being able to unsee or undo, like it's changed my life. I can't watch the credits, and if I see still photographer, I say, and still photographer. I can't
still doing it.
I can't go back.
Yep.
I can't go back.
Oh, I came up with a Mystery Science Theater one. I mentioned it earlier, The Mask, which I think is a legit great movie. They did that in the Gizmoplex era. And they did Star Crash in the Netflix era. Star Crash rules.
Yep. All right, I just thought of that question, so I thought I'd throw it out there. A little extra bonus here at the end for you folks.
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt, for coming on. I definitely wanted to do that, too. Really appreciate you coming back.
Hey, can I do it? Can I do a cheap... Absolutely, I had a blast. Can I do a cheap pop here before we're out?
Yeah, I was hoping so.
Okay. Well, hey, if you like Mystery Science Theater and you like getting into how it works and why it's so great, I and a co-author of mine have a new book coming out on August 20th. It's called Mystery Science Theater 3000, A Cultural History. It's going to be released by Rowman and Littlefield as part of their Cultural History of Television series. And that's me and my co-author, Dr. Christopher J. Olson. And we get deep down into the show and why it works and why it was the show for its time and why this riffing thing, how it works on the level of language. And it's written for it's smart. It's got an academic bend to it, but it's written for anybody. So I hope you will consider checking it out on all cool bookstores. And if you know me long enough and feel comfortable asking for a $30 gift, send me a message. I'll see if I can get you a copy.
Awesome.
So thanks Matt for being on, and thanks everybody for listening. I hope you really enjoyed the show. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, and the TikToks. We're everywhere. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time, and push the button, Frank.
Oh no, could this be the end of?